Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 26. Hey Junkie, welcome to another episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Now, I'm simply thrilled to be joined by Rachel Joyce here today. And as you may or may not know, Rachel finished third at the recent Ironman World Championships in Kona, Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, confirming her status as one of the true powerhouses in women's Ironman racing. Rachel, thanks for taking the time to chat here today. Can you maybe start off by telling us a bit about yourself and how you got involved in triathlon?
Yeah, I'm a British triathlete, but I'm living in Colorado, Boulder, Colorado. Made the move here in I came out here in 2012 for 6 months, and then my boyfriend and I we made the move in 2013 to live here full time. But kind of going back a bit further, I came into triathlon, racing as an age grouper in 2005 is when I really kind of got stuck into it. And at the time I was working as a construction solicitor in London for a firm called Taylor Wessing. And I kind of got obsessed with the sport. And in 2006, I went straight to 70.3 distance, and I had a pretty successful year as an age grouper, and I was winning my races as an age grouper, and I had qualified for the 70.3 World Championships in Clearwater. And I went there in November, and I won my age group. And then it was at that time I kind of was wondering, how good I could be at this sport, because I was balancing my training with a pretty heavy workload at work, and I was working away from home. And I looked at the results sheet from Clearwater, and I saw that my times, weren't 100 miles from the pro athletes. And like anyone who's been in sport from a young age, to be able to be a professional triathlete had kind of been this dream of mine, but it was a dream that I never thought I would ever realize. I kind of went to my work and I said, I want to resign. I want to be a professional triathlete. And luckily my boss at the time he had flexible thinking, and he thought, well, hang on a minute. You haven't, you've done about 5 triathlons in your life. Why not go part-time? So he allowed me to reduce my working week to 3 days a week, and so I could spend more time training and, probably test the waters to see whether I had a chance of making it as a professional triathlete. But I fell into the step that many new athletes in the sport fall into, and I just completely overtrained, and I spent most of the next 2 years either injured or ill. I was then approaching my 30th birthday, and I was wondering what to do because I hadn't really progressed at all in my career, and I hadn't really had a fat lot of success as a triathlete. But it was at that point I thought, it's now or never. And I completely resigned from my job, and I decided, I'd spend the rest of that year just seeing, what I could do. And my main aim was to do an Ironman. And if it all went to the wayside, I'd lined up work for after that Ironman. But if it went to plan, the plan was to kind of continue pursuing my dream of being a professional triathlete.
So what sport did you do then as growing up? Because, if you started, immediately started winning races, you must have had a serious engine in there.
Yeah, I had swum since I was about 8 years old, competitively, and I swam the whole way through high school. And I was okay. I would go to the nationals, I would make finals, but I was never going to be Olympic material. I actually got fed up of swimming when I left high school at 18 and I took a year out. But I got back into swimming at school, at college, at university, and then I swam a lot when I started working in London, and I actually started posting the best times of my life, even though I was only probably training 4 times a week. And then I jumped in and I did the London Marathon, and I think that was when I realised I was probably kind of a better suited to endurance sports, because I kind of went into that marathon hoping to break 3 hours 30 and I went 3:02. So it took a couple more years after that to get into triathlon, but I think there was something about the training for that marathon and the kind of mental aspect of, having to deal with the discomfort that you feel in the latter stages of a marathon that appealed, and that kind of sowed the seed for triathlon later on.
Yeah, cool. All right, so then you started triathlon and you worked half time for a bit before making the switch to a full life as a pro athlete. Was it just, is it just about chasing that dream of being a pro athlete? Because I think you could be making a lot more money as a lawyer than as a pro triathlete, or am I wrong there?
You're not wrong. I definitely spent the first few years, I made no money for quite a long time. And I was really relying on, the generosity of friends and who, kind of supported me, like with equipment, like a training company called the and on savings. But I decided, money's never been a huge driver for me. And I knew that I could come back to the law, but, I had a finite time I could try and attempt to be a professional triathlete. And that's what really drove me. And I really didn't want to be thinking, I wonder what would have happened if, I didn't want that what if question later on.
Yeah, cool. And the move definitely paid off because, you have like multiple 70.3 wins, a couple of iron distance wins under your belt, and a great track record in Kona. What's been a highlight for you so far?
I think I look at the highlights in two ways. I think the first time I went to Kona in 2009 and I positioned 6th, that was a real highlight for me because I wasn't making any money. I was operating at a massive loss, and I wasn't really sure whether I belonged on the world stage. And so when I finished in the top 10, it was a real confirmation to me that I was on the right track, and I wasn't completely wasting my time in going for it as a professional triathlete. I think since then it's hard to identify one highlight. I think winning Challenge Roth in 2012 was a massive win for me. That was probably the biggest win up to that point. And I think finishing second last year, that's another highlight in Kona.
Yeah, all right. So you had your fourth top 5 finish this year, just with a third spot. Can you quickly tell us a bit about your 2014 season and what your expectations were going into the Kona race?
2014, I definitely had a slow start. I kind of suffered with a bit of anemia early on in the season, and it just took me a little while to kind of get on top of that. So I didn't start racing until June. And I did the Kansas 70.3 and Boulder 70.3. And I felt I was starting to find my form in those races. And I came second in both of them. I think the Boulder race, I had a very good race, and I came second to JD Swallows. So I was pretty happy with that. And then I went to Challenge Roth, and I actually did my best time to date in Challenge Roth, and I came second again. So to Rinny. So I then just put my head down and really focused on Kona. And I had a really, really good block of training, and I felt like I was in the best shape to date. I felt like I'd made a real progress. I felt like my biking was in a good place in Roth, and I think I just built on that slightly going into Kona. But I felt like my run had really come on. So I kind of went into Kona. I was gunning for the win. I didn't expect to win, but I felt like I was in a good place fitness wise that I had a chance of winning. And even in the race, I felt like I biked myself into a position where I really had a shot at winning. But I just couldn't deliver on the run on race day. And that was something. It's funny how expectations change, because I kind of felt like I let myself down on the run. And so if you'd asked me 2 years ago, how would you feel about a podium at the World Championships? I would have been like, yeah, I would take that. But I was happy to be on the podium, but I felt like I didn't really showcase my run on the day that really mattered. But I came third to two superb athletes, and they were better on the day, and that's that.
Yeah, but in the end, it was really close. So, maybe with a run that was up to par, you definitely could have won there. So, I guess you're taking that away from this year's race for next year. That fitness wise and training wise, everything seems to work. It's just maybe just some better run legs on the day.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and it was close, and I think. I really want to champion the women's race. So, I would really like to see an even number of men and women on the start line. But I think the way the women's race played out really shows that we're exciting to watch. There was a lot of changes in who was leading, and it did really come down to the wire. And you're right. Sometimes it's tempting when you kind of miss out on your A goal to win, is to think that you have to change something, but it was really close, and I think I'm on the right track, and it just takes some fine tuning for next year to go back to Kona and give it another crack.
Yeah. Can you quickly take us through your day? Did you have a race plan going in, and were you able to sort of stick to it?
My plan is always focused on me and not other people, so it's my plan was to swim the front group, which that didn't work. I led the second group, but I wasn't particularly panicked. It wasn't the ideal situation, but when I came out and I saw that we were only 2 minutes back on the lead group, I felt pretty. I wasn't panicking. I felt, okay, we've got 180K. I'm pretty sure that we can bridge that gap. And I felt really, my plan is always to kind of manage the adrenaline in the first 10K through town, and then the race really begins once you hit the Queen K on the bike. And I felt great. I was kind of pushing the pace, and we kind of made good grounds. And by the time we caught a middle group pretty early on, and then we dropped them, and then by the time we got to the Harvey turnoff, we had caught the front pack. And there, my plan's not to base my race on someone else. Obviously, you have to look at the race dynamic, but I knew as we climbed up to Harvey, Daniela did put in a real effort, and I felt it wasn't sensible for me to kind of ride for too long outside what I know that I'm capable of. I'm not a slave to my power meter. I do go by feel, but I felt confident that I would be strong in the back half of the ride, and it was worth riding my pace and really focusing on that last 20 miles. And Daniela did open up. I think the gap grew to 4 minutes, but I had shrunk that to 2 minutes by the time we rolled into T2. And, coming out on the run, my tactic is really just to run as fast as I can, for as long as not to be kamikaze, but you're always going to have highs and lows on that run, and you just have to be sensible. And it's 26 miles is a long way, so you've got to make sure that you feel strong when you reach the Queen K after you've been through town. And, this is where I was hoping I wouldn't feel like I did on that marathon, but I felt pretty awful for a 6-mile sector of it, from about 6 miles to 11 miles. And it went from thinking about bridging that gap to Daniela to, just focusing on the next step, because I couldn't really get my head round running another 20 miles, feeling as bad as I did. But luckily I started to feel better once we hit the Queen K, and, I had good patches and bad patches. And while I did start to bridge the gap to Daniela, unfortunately, Rinny had bridged the gap to us. So at that point, once Rinny had passed me, I did try and kind of follow her tempo, but she dropped me pretty quickly. But I was making up ground on Daniela, and I think at one point I got the gap down to 40 minutes. But I think once she had been passed by Rinny, she picked up the pace again, and in the end, I think I finished about 90 seconds behind her.
Yeah. Did you find a solution to, or the explanation to that bad patch between mile 6 and mile 11?
It wasn't a nutrition issue, so it is something my coach Dave Scott and I will be looking at in the next few weeks to see what it was. And there's so many factors. And was it something to do with my bike position? Was it a nutrition issue? Was I overheating? There's so many things, and so we'll look at everything. Was it a mechanical issue? Was I just not running smoothly? But I'm pretty sure we can work through it and make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, maybe you just have a talk with Freddie Van Leert, because I think he had the same problem coming out of the energy lab, and he didn't really know what the issue was there as well, and all of a sudden he came through, but yeah, it was too late. You mentioned Dave Scott there. You started working with him in the end of 2012. What's changed for you since working with him?
Some things didn't really. It wasn't like a massive overhaul of my training. He definitely looks at what I'd been doing before. He didn't want to kind of reinvent the wheel, but things that changed. There was some more intensity in my training. The way my week was built up was different, and I felt like I've been pushed. I've kind of. The first year was pretty tough because I was looking at the training schedule and wondering how I was going to get through it. And it shows that your body adapts to that kind of workload, and it feels much more manageable now. So as well, there's a bit more intensity, and I think also having Dave, we live in the same town, so I get to see him several times a week, and I think that makes a difference when you're for working with a coach. And I've really enjoyed kind of having a hands-on approach.
Yeah, cool. So what's next for you? I think you're racing Challenge Bahrain.
Yeah, I'm racing Challenge Bahrain, and before then I'll be heading to Australia and doing a couple of 70.3s in the lead up, and then taking advantage of their summertime to get some prep in for Bahrain, which I want to be in really good shape for that race. I'm not turning up just to make up the numbers. So that's going to be a big focus for me in the next kind of 5 or 6 weeks.
You see it a bit as a revenge race, or is it going to be different because, it's just a half distance?
It's different because it is a half distance. And I feel like I've never really focused, had a focused training block on being good at 70.3. And it's kind of nice to have this change, because it kind of has kept me motivated. It's so intense in the build up to an Ironman, but to have a different focus on speed and things, that's kind of keeping my interest until off season starts in December.
Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with your preparation. I know the world will be watching that race, so I hope you do well there.
Thank you.
So yeah, for 2015, you got anything planned already, or is that still just a bit way off?
It's still a way off. I with the new setup, I'm definitely will be targeting one of the championship Ironman races, probably in the first 6 months of the year. I haven't decided which one yet. And then I'm not sure whether, yeah, I haven't really given it a lot of thought, but I think I'll focus mainly on the US races for the first part of the year, but I haven't ruled off, I'd kind of like to put myself in a position so I'm qualified for the 70.3 Worlds and see whether I want to go over to Austria and race in that before Kona.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned there the new setup of WTC. What's your opinion on the fact that they redistributed the pro prize money for next year? I'm guessing it's a good thing for you as an elite, but what do you think it's going to be like for the younger and upcoming pros?
I've been thinking about this a lot, and I'm in two minds because often there are different routes into Ironman. There's the route that I took, where I hadn't really got any history in the sport and I jumped into being a professional triathlete. So, and then there are the people that have come through ITU, through the short course route. And I wonder how many actually young athletes kind of come straight to Ironman and, cut their teeth on the Ironman circuit. So it's almost like a philosophical question. Is Ironman here to develop athletes, or are there other routes for those athletes to develop? And I think that's a really important question that we need to look at, because you don't want to cut off the races that will develop new talent in the future. And if there is a demand for a circuit for those athletes, I'd really like to see maybe the same. I kind of like what the WTC have done in streamlining the races, because I do think it's not good for the sport when you only have 3 or 4 athletes turning up to race for a pro purse. I just think it's not that interesting to watch. But I think maybe paying deeper if you're having fewer races with a prize purse, I think then you should pay deeper, so there is an opportunity for the people that aren't going to make the top 10 to still make money or almost break even by racing in those bigger races.
Okay, cool. Why am I getting an echo here? Oh, I'll cut that out. Sorry about that. We've also had some Twitter questions come through from Claire Doherty from the UK, who also raced in Kona this year. And she has 2 questions. First of all, she wants to know if you have any top mental strength tips for her.
During an Ironman, a lot of the mental tips is to not get too. If you're not feeling good, don't allow that to overtake your whole thought process. So just remind yourself that you will start to feel better, and try and take your mind off how you're feeling and think about other things, and constantly remind yourself that this isn't it for the rest of the race. You'll come through this and then you'll feel good again, because otherwise it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you just focus on, I feel so bad, then you probably aren't going to start feeling better.
So maybe divide your race into smaller pieces and just think
about the next aid station. What are you going to have? And just those distraction tactics will take your mind off, how much your legs are hurting or whatever.
Yeah, cool. And the second one is pretty practical. She wants to know what your pre-race breakfast is.
It looks pretty unappealing. I pre-soak oats in water the night before, so they kind of have like plumped up, and I have that with half a banana, and I stir in some nut butter, and then I have a hard-boiled egg as well.
That sounds yummy.
Yeah.
But it works. All right. Well, I'm not going to keep you up much longer. I know you have a meeting to go to. Just to finish things off, how can people get in touch with you?
You can contact me through my website. There's a contact form on there, and also through Twitter, which is at rjoyce09. And find me on Facebook. I'm pretty responsive to messages I receive through Facebook too.
All right, cool. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors.
I want to say a massive thank you to all my sponsors. There's Cervelo, Newton Running, Louis Garno, Shimano, Power Bar, ISM Saddles, XLab Accessories, and I will always forget one, a Ceramic Speed, and I think that's everyone. But no, I really appreciate all their support. They go over and above just providing equipment. They kind of really look out for me around the races too.
All right, cool. Definitely make sure to put those links up in the show notes page on the website. Anything else you want to plug?
No, I don't think so. I think that's everything.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks for your time, Rachel.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Have a good day. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that's another one in the bag. I really hope you enjoyed that one with Rachel today. If you've missed anything, you want to find out more about Rachel and her sponsors, you can always check it out at the show notes pages on the website, which you can find at www.junkiepodcast.com. And you will be able to find Rachel's page pretty easily there. Now, there's also a new button on the right-hand side called Guest Wishlist. Now, I've had a review out of the UK this weekend, and I don't know the person's name. She used the nickname when writing the review. She said she enjoyed listening to the podcast, but that it was pretty Ironman dominant, and that she wanted to see it branch out to other sports. Now, I think she's correct. It has been a lot about Ironman and about triathlon lately. It's the sport that I come from. It's the people that I know best. And yeah, we just had the Ironman World Championships recently, so there's definitely need to talk to these people. But she's correct. I need to branch out, and I've had some Xterra athletes on. I've had some run coaches on. I've had some CrossFitters on. But I think I need your help there in getting some guests for the show. So if you could go to the website and click on that guest wishlist button, that will take you to a form where you can add your top 3 guests that you want to see featured on the show. And you can leave a little explanation why you want them on the show. And then I will try to do my best and get these people on as quickly as possible. All right, thanks for that. Now, I'm going to follow up on Wednesday with, I'm sorry to say, another Ironman athlete. It's going to be Jody Swallow, who finished 4th in Kona. So, do check out that show if you want it delivered to your smartphone. As soon as it is released, go to iTunes and, subscribe there. And while you're at it, leave us a review and a rating. That will help grow the show even further. All right, that's it for today. I really hope you enjoyed it, and see you on Wednesday.